This is a quick take on adding and subtracting fractions. The important thing to remember when adding and subtracting fractions is that you have to have a common denominator. This is not true for multiplying and dividing fractions, only for adding and subtracting fractions. In this problem, 3/9 plus 4/9, we can see that yes, indeed, we do have a common denominator. The denominator in both numbers here is 9. Because it's common, we can go ahead and add the numerators together. 3 plus 4 is 7, and the denominator will stay the same as 9. And that's your answer. 3/9 plus 4/9 equals 7/9. In this next example, we do not have a common denominator, 3/4 plus 2/3. So our first step is to change these fractions so that we have a common denominator. And to do that, I'm going to list multiples of both of the denominators until I can find a common multiple, and that will become my common denominator. So let's list some multiples of 4. 4 times 2 is 8. 4 times 3 is 12. 4 times 4 is 16. Let's list some for 3. 3 times 2 is 6. 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times 4 is 12, and I can stop right there because I see that I do have a common multiple, and that's 12, so I'm going to use that as my common denominator. Now, I need to change 3/4 to an equivalent fraction that will have 12 on the bottom. So I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to write 12 on the bottom. So how did that 4 change to a 12? Well, we multiplied the 4 by 3 to get 12. And whatever we do on the bottom, we also have to do on the top to make an equivalent fraction. So 3 times 3 is 9. So 3/4 is changed to 9/12, and that's an equivalent fraction to 3/4. Now we're also going to change this one. 12 will go on the bottom. How did the 3 change to a 12? Well, we multiplied the 3 by 4 to get 12. So we also have to do that on the top. Whatever you do on the bottom, you also do to the top. And 2 times 4 is 8. So this fraction is going to change to 8/12. So we end up with 9/12 plus 8/12. And now that we have a common denominator, we can go ahead and add. 9 plus 8 is 17. And the denominator will stay the same as 12. If you look at that fraction, you see that it is an improper fraction, which means that the bottom number, the denominator, is less than the top number, the numerator. We do not want to leave it in improper fraction form for our final answer, so we're going to change that to a mixed number. And to do that, you look at the fraction like a division problem, 17 divided by 12. So I could write it like this, and go ahead and go through the steps. How many times does 12 go into 17? 1 time. I'm going to subtract the 12. And we have a remainder of 5. So 12 goes into 17 1 time with a remainder of 5/12. And that is our final answer written as a mixed number, 1 and 5/12. For this last one, we're going to do a subtraction problem. And when we take a look at the subtraction problem, we notice 2 things. First of all, we don't have a common denominator, so we're definitely going to have to deal with that. But secondly, the fractions aren't written in the same form. And when adding and subtracting fractions, and even multiplying and dividing fractions, it's nice to have the fractions written in the same form. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this mixed number to an improper fraction. And to do that, you multiply the denominator times the whole number. 2 times 2 is 4, and then you add the numerator to that total. So 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5. So the numerator is going to change to a 5, and the denominator stays the same. We write that as a 2. Now, let's write this over again. So now our problem says 5/2 minus 1/4. So before we can solve, we definitely need to find a common denominator. And when I look at these 2 numbers, right away I notice that 4 is a multiple of 2. So I know that I can use 4 as my common denominator. Sometimes when you look at the two numbers, like if we had 3 and 4 at the bottom, we know that 4 is not a multiple of 3, so we couldn't use 4 as our common denominator. But in this case, we can. So 1/4 is going to stay the same. That's not changing at all. But we are going to change this 2 to a 4. And to do that, we had to multiply the 2 by 2. So we also have to do that at the top. And 5 times 2 is 10. So now that we have a common denominator, we can go ahead and subtract. 10 minus 1 is 9. And the bottom stays the same as 4. And we need to change this back to a mixed number because it is indeed an improper fraction. 4 goes into 9 2 times with 1 remainder. So the answer is 2 1/4.